You know what hurts more than heartbreak? Feeling like you gave your best to someone who didn't even value it. But here's the truth. Heartbreak doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. He thought you'd fall apart. He thought you'd chase, cry, question your worth. But instead you leveled up. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your power. You're not here to feed his ego anymore. You're here to protect your peace, rebuild your standards, and become the woman he'll regret losing. Because while he's out there looking for the next fragile heart to play with you, you've already moved on to something stronger, smarter, and so much more you. When someone breaks your heart, it's easy to fall into the trap of defining yourself by that pain. You start questioning what you did wrong, what you lacked, or why you weren't enough. That mindset keeps you stuck in the role of the victim. But here's the truth most people don't realize right away. Just because you were hurt doesn't mean you have to stay hurt. And just because someone made you feel powerless in a moment doesn't mean you can't reclaim that power moving forward. What separates those who stay broken from those who come back stronger isn't what happened to them. It's what they decide to do with it. The heartbreak may not have been your choice, but the next move is. And this is where the shift begins. From the victim of a painful ending to the creator of a powerful comeback. That shift isn't about pretending the pain didn't happen. It's not about faking a smile or posting a highlight reel to make them jealous. It's about doing the real, sometimes uncomfortable work of choosing to rise. It's looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, this isn't going to be the thing that defines me. This is going to be the thing that refines me. You see, people often think that their power is lost when someone walks away from them. But the truth is, power isn't taken. It's given. You gave your time, your energy, your love, and maybe even a few chances too many. But that doesn't make you weak. It makes you someone who loved deeply and was willing to be vulnerable. That's not something to regret. It's something to redirect. Because now you get to choose who's truly worth that kind of energy. Now you take what you've learned and use it to build boundaries, standards, and self-respect that are unshakable. This shift is where everything starts to change. When you stop asking, why wasn't I enough for him? And start asking, why did I ever think he was enough for me? That's when the healing becomes transformation. That's when your heartbreak turns into self-respect. And that's when you realize the game has changed. Not because you played it better, but because you stopped playing it altogether. There's something magnetic about someone who's been hurt, but didn't let it turn them cold. Someone who felt the sting of betrayal or rejection and still chose to grow instead of shrink. That kind of strength is what truly breaks egos. Not through revenge, but through radiance. Because nothing challenges a man's ego more than the woman he thought he broke becoming happier, more grounded, and more powerful without him. And the best part, you're not doing it for him. You're doing it because of you. You are not broken. You were cracked open. And now you get to choose what fills that space. Let it be self-worth. Let it be purpose. Let it be a standard so high that the next person who wants your heart will need to bring more than charm and chemistry. They'll need to bring consistency, character, and clarity. So, no, you're not the broken girl he left behind. You're the woman he won't recognize when you rise. And that shift, that's your power. That's your story. And it starts the moment you decide you're done letting someone else's weakness define your worth. Ego thrives on attention. It feeds off reactions, your anger, your tears, your desperate texts, your explanations. When someone hurts you and knows they still have emotional control over you, their ego grows. And that's exactly why silence is such a powerful move. Not because it's cold or manipulative, but because it's the one thing ego can't handle being ignored. When you don't react the way someone expects you to, when you don't beg for closure or try to prove your worth, it throws them off balance. Suddenly, they're not in control anymore. You are. After heartbreak, most people go into panic mode. They want answers. They want to feel seen and understood. They want to remind the other person what they're losing. But here's the hard truth of anyone who could walk away so easily isn't sitting there reflecting deeply on your worth of your absence. They're not wondering how you're doing if they know you're still chasing their validation. What makes them reflect, what makes them feel, is the absence of that validation, the absence of your energy, the absence of you. When you remove yourself completely from someone who was once used to having access to your emotions, it forces them to confront their own behavior. Or at the very least, it starves the part of them that was using your attention to fuel their pride. Think about this: just when he breaks your heart and still expects you to be around, liking his posts, checking his stories, texting him back. That's not love. That's ego. And ego is only satisfied when it sees that it still has power over you. Your job isn't to hurt him back or make him jealous. It's to cut the cord between his ego and your energy. That means no dramatics, no messages, no attempts to prove anything. Just pure, grounded silence. That kind of discipline is powerful because it doesn't just show him you've moved on. It proves to yourself that you've taken your power back. This doesn't mean you're pretending not to care. It means you care about yourself more. You care about your peace more than about his attention. You care about your future more than you care about revisiting a past that already proved it couldn't handle your heart. The real win here isn't in making him suffer. It's in letting go of the need for him to suffer at all. That's when you truly detach. That's when your confidence becomes unshakable, because it's no longer dependent on his reaction, his guilt, or his regret. He might come back. That's often how it goes. People come back when the supply of attention dries up. They check in to see if they can still pull you in. And that's your testing, not to respond out of old emotion, but to stay grounded in the version of you that doesn't need to be validated by breadcrumbs. Silence isn't a game. It's a boundary. And boundaries teach people how to treat you better than any lecture or confrontation ever will. This isn't about revenge. It's about respect. Self-respect. You're no longer in the business of inflating someone's ego just because you miss them. Missing someone is human. But entertaining someone who broke you is a choice. And when you stop choosing to feed his ego, you start feeding your own growth. Every time you resist the urge to reach out, every time you stay quiet instead of explaining yourself, every time you let go instead of holding on to false hope, you're telling yourself, I matter more, my peace matters more, my energy matters more. And over time, that becomes your new normal. You don't just survive the heartbreak, you rise above it. And that's when you realize the real power move was never breaking his ego. It was breaking the pattern of giving it your power in the first place. Confidence is the most powerful response to heartbreak, and not because it's loud or in your face. True confidence is quiet, steady, and undeniable. It's the energy you carry when you know who you are, even after someone else failed to see your value. When someone breaks your heart, they often expect to leave behind someone shattered, someone who doubts herself, who loses her spark, who questions her worth. What they don't expect is for that same to rise with even more clarity, more purpose, and more radiance. That's why confidence is the ultimate clapback. It doesn't just surprise them, it completely disarms them. After a breakup, it's normal to feel lost. You gave someone your time, your trust, maybe even your future. When it ends, it's not just the relationship you grieve. It's the version of you that existed in that relationship. But that version isn't gone forever. It just needs to be rebuilt, stronger and smarter. And that rebuilding starts the moment you decide your self-worth isn't tied to someone else's ability to love you properly. Confidence doesn't come from pretending you're fine or forcing a smile while you're hurting. It comes from doing the real work of reminding yourself what you bring to the table. It comes from remembering that your value didn't disappear because someone failed to recognize it. Confidence is rooted in self-respect. It's knowing that even in your most vulnerable state, you still have something deeply beautiful and powerful within you, and you don't need anyone else's approval to feel it. And here's the thing, ego-driven people expect a scene. They expect drama, breakdowns, beginning, maybe even anger. What they don't expect is peace, silence, grace. They don't expect you to move forward without explanation. That's what makes confidence so disruptive to a fragile ego. You're no longer engaging with the drama. You're no longer trying to change their mind or prove your worth. You're just gone, calm, collected, evolving. That sends a louder message than anything you could ever say. This isn't about trying to make him regret losing you. That's just a side effect. The real focus is on making yourself proud, on becoming someone so grounded in her identity that no one else's departure can shake her foundation. You stop looking for closure from him because you find it in yourself. You stop wondering if he'll come back because deep down you know that if he does, he won't be met by the same version of you who once waited. People notice that change. Maybe not right away, but they feel it. Confidence has an energy that doesn't beg to be seen, it just is. It walks into rooms without needing attention. It chooses silence over chaos. It chooses standards over temporary comfort. And most of all, it chooses self-love over emotional dependency. That's what breaks egos. Not revenge, not games, but the simple, elegant power of having moved on with your high and your peace intact. And here's the beautiful part. The more you live in that confidence, the less you even care about breaking his ego. That stops being the goal. Your focus shifts entirely to yourself, to your growth, your healing, your future. You stop thinking about proving anything to anyone else. You just become someone who doesn't need to, because the person you're becoming. She's not here to win him back. She's here to win herself back. And this time, she's not giving that version away so easily. After a heartbreak, one of the most common emotional traps is the urge to chase the very person who caused the pain. It's a deeply human response. We crave closure. We want to feel chosen. We want them to realize what they lost. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Chasing someone who devalued you doesn't heal anything. It only deepens the wound. The real power move is to stop running after people who made you question your worth and instead focus on becoming someone they no longer have access to. When someone pulls away, they're silently communicating something. Whether it's, I don't respect this, or I don't value what we had, or simply, I'm not afraid to lose you. You need to listen. Ignoring that message and continuing to pursue them isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. Love doesn't live in convincing someone to see you differently. Real love happens when someone already values you and treats you accordingly. If you have to prove your worth, it's already a sign that you're standing in the wrong place. So many people get stuck in the belief that if I just show them how good I am, they'll come back. But if someone couldn't see your value the first time, when your heart was open, when your love was real, why would you believe they'll see it now that you're chasing them? That's not love. That's ego on their side and fear on yours. You don't need someone to come back and realize they lost you. You need to realize that the moment they let you go, they already did. Confidence begins when you stop asking for someone's attention and start commanding it. By how you treat yourself. When you raise your standards, you automatically raise your energy. You attract people who want to rise to meet you, not drag you down to meet them. That's the essence of upgrading instead of chasing. You're no longer trying to win over someone who couldn't meet your emotional needs. You're becoming the kind of woman who demands emotional maturity and effort just by being herself. Think of all the time and energy that goes into chasing, the late night texts, the replaying of conversations, the silent comparisons, the desperate overthinking. Now imagine redirecting that same energy into becoming someone who no longer begs for love but chooses it. Wisely, carefully, and from a place of strength. That's where your transformation lies. That's where you stop being someone who settles for the bare minimum and start becoming someone who inspires the maximum effort from the right person. When you upgrade yourself, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you begin to live in a different frequency. You no longer align with people who manipulate. breadcrumb, or ghost. You stop engaging in relationships that feel like battles. You stop craving chaos, because peace starts feeling like home. And most importantly, you no longer fear walking away, because you know what you bring. You no longer cling to people who hurt you, because you've finally chosen yourself. That's how you win. Not by getting them back, not by proving them wrong, but by no longer needing anything from them at all. You become whole on your own, and that wholeness becomes your new standard. You don't chase, you don't beg. You simply open your heart when it's safe and close the door when it's not. That's not cruelty. It's self-love. That's not pride. It's self-respect. So let them go. Let them wander. Let them scroll through your life from a distance and realize too late what they lost. Because by then you'll be so far into your own growth, they won't even recognize the woman they once thought was easy to walk away from. And that's the kind of power that needs no explanation. Closure is one of the most sought after things after heartbreak. People often feel like they need that final conversation, that explanation, that moment of honesty to make peace with what happened. But the reality is, closure rarely comes the way we imagine it. Most of the time, the person who hurt you won't suddenly become who you needed them to be. They won't offer clarity, remorse, or the truth in a way that actually helps you heal. And the longer you wait for them to give you peace, the more power you give them to keep you stuck. That's why your greatest freedom begins not when you get closure from them, but when you give it to yourself and walk away in silence. Disappearing with dignity is more powerful than any dramatic goodbye. It means you've reached a point where you no longer need to explain yourself. You don't need to beg someone to see your worth. You don't need to spell out how they hurt you in hopes they'll finally get it. Instead, you protect your peace by removing yourself completely. You exit the situation not with noise, but with clarity. That kind of exit is unsettling to the person who expected to have access to you for a little longer. It creates a silence they can't ignore, because they weren't expecting you to be strong enough to simply let go. There's a difference between disappearing because you're broken and disappearing because you've healed. The first is avoidance. The second is power. When you silently walk away, you're sending a message, not just to them, but to yourself, that you've outgrown the need to be understood by someone who never really listened in the first place. You stop trying to make them see what they never appreciated, and instead you choose yourself. And that's a kind of strength most people don't expect, especially if they're used to you always reaching out, always explaining, always staying available. Your silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you finally understand that saying it won't change anything. You're no longer interested in arguments that go in circles. You're done handing your emotions to someone who didn't know what to do with them. That quiet exit is a boundary. It says, I value myself too much to keep having the same conversation with someone who doesn't care to listen. They might try to come back, especially when they notice your absence. They may test the waters to see if they still have access to you. But silence isn't about disappearing. It's about staying gone. It's about not letting someone back in just because they suddenly realize they miss your energy. Because the truth is, sometimes people only miss you when they notice they can no longer use you. That's not love. That's ego. And you break that pattern the moment you stop responding. You don't need to be cold or cruel. You don't need to post cryptic messages or create drama to prove you're over them. Your quiet, graceful exit says everything. It speaks of a woman who has outgrown the games, the confusion, and the emotional instability. It shows that you've found peace within yourself, and that peace is now your priority. You're not running away. You're stepping into something better, something healthier, something more aligned with the person you're becoming. And that's what makes silence so loud. Not because it's empty, but because it's full of everything you now choose to protect. Your time, your energy, your heart. It's not revenge, it's self-respect. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away without a word, knowing that your absence will echo louder than any speech you could have made. There comes a point after heartbreak when you realize that pain wasn't just caused by someone else's actions. It was allowed, in part, by your lack of boundaries. That realization is tough, but it's also transformative. Because once you understand that your standards are your shield, you start to see heartbreak differently. It's no longer just something that happened to you. It becomes a signal that something needs to change in how you show up for yourself. Setting high standards isn't about being difficult or demanding. It's about protecting your heart with the same energy you used to pour into everyone else. It's about not letting anyone in who doesn't meet the minimum requirement of emotional maturity, consistency, and respect. Many people confuse standards with expectations, but they're very different. Expectations are what you hope someone will do. Standards are what you require someone to do if they want access to you. And the truth is, when you have no standards, you end up accepting behaviors that leave you hurt, confused, and drained. You let red flags slide. You interpret bare minimum effort as affection. You give the benefit of the doubt over and over again until there's nothing left of your own self-respect. But the moment you raise your standards, you draw a clear line between what you'll tolerate and what you won't. And that line protects you far more than any romantic fantasy ever could. When you truly start valuing yourself, you no longer settle for almosts. Almost available, almost respectful, almost consistent, almost becomes unacceptable. You realize that love isn't proven by how much you're willing to sacrifice. It's proven by how much someone else is willing to show up without being asked twice. You no longer find cows exciting. You no longer think it's normal to feel anxious about whether someone likes you or is going to stay. That's not love. That's emotional survival. And when your standards rise, survival is no longer your relationship baseline. Peace is. The most empowering thing about having strong standards is that you no longer rely on someone else to give you validation. You've created the criteria for what love should feel like. And if someone doesn't meet that, you walk away without hesitation. That doesn't make you heartless. It makes you someone who finally realizes that not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Some people are only meant to watch you from afar because they were never capable of handling the real you. And yes, raising your standards may mean you're single for longer. It may mean fewer people stick around. But that's not a loss. That's alignment. You're no longer a magnet for people who want to take advantage of your kindness or charm you with potential. You become a filter that only allows in the ones who come correct, the ones who communicate clearly, show up consistently, and respect you deeply. And the best part is, you no longer feel guilty for requiring that. The heartbreak that once shattered you now becomes your turning point. It was the moment you stopped asking, "Why didn't he treat me right?" and started saying, "Why did I allow someone to treat me less than I deserve?" That shift in thinking is where your power lies. It's no longer about changing others. It's about changing the way you protect your energy. Your standards become your compass, your armor, and your silent message to the world. This is how I expect to be treated. If you can't meet me here, don't bother stepping in. Because now, love isn't something you chase. It's something that meets you where you already stand. Tall, grounded, and unwilling to shrink just to be seen. You've rewritten the rules, and this time they end with self-respect. So here's the truth: heartbreak doesn't have to be your ending. It can be your awakening. When you stop letting someone else's actions define your worth, when you refuse to feed their ego with your pain, and when you choose to rise with confidence, dignity, and unshakable standards, you reclaim your power. Remember, it's not about breaking his ego to get revenge. It's about breaking the cycle that gave him control over your happiness in the first place. Your peace, your growth, and your self-respect are the real victories. So hold your head high, guard your heart fiercely, and keep moving forward. because the best chapter of your life is the one where you become the person who never settles for less than she deserves.